Welcome to Behind the Catch Fence. I'm your host, David Hoffman. I hope you guys are doing well. I guess you can say racing is nearly back in full swing. We had the Chili Bowl a couple weeks ago, the Rolex 24 was last week, we got the Clash of the Coliseum this weekend, if it doesn't rain, and the World of Outlaws season is underway in less than 2 weeks. Needless to say, our plate of racing is getting filled with lots of meats and potatoes. Well, before I get hungry, on today's show, we have full-time World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series driver Logan Schuchart on the show. The 41-time World of Outlaws winner is entering his 11th season on the Sprint Car Tour aboard the Sharp Racing number 1S. In today's show, we discuss his rise to the World of Outlaws, his roots in central Pennsylvania, which happens to be in the heart of the Pennsylvania posse, his thoughts on the upcoming season, and much more. So with that, sit back, relax, grab your favorite snack, maybe some hot dogs, whether it's on the grill, boiled, some people hate boiled hot dogs, in the microwave, whatever. It's a hot dog. It's true American food. Go enjoy this episode with Logan Schuchart. I'm sure your grandfather, Bobby Allen, was a big part of your career, kind of going, what you want to do. Just what do you feel was your earliest memory of sprint car racing?
My earliest memory of sprint car racing. I don't know. That'd be kind of tough to answer. My earliest memory that I could probably think of is when I was around age 8, 9, 10, 11. Probably earlier than that, actually. Yeah, it was before I was racing, because once we started racing go-karts, I wasn't going to sprint car races as much because they're always on Fridays and Saturdays and stuff like that. So I didn't actually get to go back to watching some of the World of Outlaw events until I was a little bit older, maybe a teenager or something like that. But when I was real young, my grandfather would take me to Lincoln or Williams Grove to watch the Outlaws, and we'd go. And especially at that age, he would have only been retired for a couple of years, so we'd go around guys like Joey Saldana, Steve Kinzer, and talk to them. Jack Hodenshield, my grandpa was friends with, and just kind of a little bit of a closer insight to the sport and some of the legends and the guys that make the sport tick. So that was probably my earliest memory. And when I was real young, also with my grandpa just retiring or getting out of it, sort of when I was probably less than 5 years old, he had his cars around the shop still, even though he was starting to stop to run our family-owned go-kart track that we had here in Hanover. So he still had some stuff, but then especially as I got a couple years older and started racing go-karts, he sold a lot of his remaining sprint car parts and cars that he had to go-kart racing. And we traveled the country for a year or two racing with the WKA series. So it was pretty neat to do that, but also it costs a lot of money to do it. And back then, they didn't race for any money. It was basically just a trophy to kind of say you did it. Now there's some bigger go-kart races, but back then we didn't race for money.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned doing the go-kart route for a little bit there. Just I guess how was that experience for you, just in terms of kind of getting it into a rhythm of racing in general before you decided to go sprint cars?
Oh, I did it from probably 8 years old to about 15, somewhere in that area. And then we started trying to get our own sprint car together. So I had a year or two in between 14, 15 years old of trying to get a sprint car together where I didn't really race at all, which was a very weird part of my life because I've always been around racing. I've always raced, even before I raced go-karts competitively. Like I said, my grandfather had Allen's Cartway. It was called Speedway 94 for a while. But that was always around. So I was always down there racing. I raced go-karts competitively. So once I got to that 14, 15-year-old mark, when we were kind of transitioning through go-karts to sprint cars, that was pretty weird to not race at all for a year or two. But I got to race Rick Horn's car at the end of when I was about 14. At the end of the season, I got to run a car for 2 races in Rick Horn's car, like I said. And then when I was 15, actually that was Aaron Ott's car. Ran Aaron Ott's car. Don Ott and his family went to the mountains, and they let us take his car to Trailway Speedway when I was about 14. And then the following year, I ran Rick Horn's car for 2 races at the very end of the year. And then when I was 16, we got our own car together that we ended up running 20, 25 races somewhere in that area. So kind of a transition. And then obviously we took the family owned team and it started getting bigger and bigger.
Obviously, you end up getting to the World of Outlaws full time in 2014 there after a couple years. Just, I mean, how would you describe just the nuances and just the natural growing pains that come with joining that series for a full tour?
Well, it's tough. It's tough for anybody. I think you see even the top dogs in our sport, some of the best teams, best drivers who can run on a very high level, win some of the biggest races. But when they try to follow a series for the full season, they kind of struggle a little bit at times to be that consistent on a nightly basis. You know, some teams will have tracks that they're gonna run well at, and that's why they pick and choose. They're not going to run a full schedule. They'll go to just the bigger events, ones that they feel like they're going to run well at, and there might even be some bigger races at some other size tracks, and they just don't show up because they don't feel like they're going to run well. So that's to me, that's why I think running a full year with a series like the World of Outlaws, where I still believe the best full time teams are going to be, is the toughest schedule. It's it's you're going to have the best drivers, the best cars, and then the high limit's going to be very tough with the quality of cars that they have. And then you're going to still get those guys showing up at some of our bigger races and the weekends that they have off. So there's a lot to win this year as far as payouts and big races, big money on the line. You know, the pay is going up, and with the series and what they're all trying to do. So I think it's great what Kyle and Brad are doing with their series, and just trying to bring more money back to the drivers and teams and car owners.
You kind of mentioned it just with, I mean, your teammate Jacob Allen, he'll be running high limit versus you doing World of Outlaws. How do you feel, I guess, for Shark Racing, that's the best case scenario for you guys to go and chase money and kind of split evenly down the middle?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's a lot of money to be won on each side, and some of our bigger events where we're going to have triple digit, um, you know, paying races. Um, it's going to be, you're going to have a lot of high limit guys show up for that, and it's going to make it even that much more tough. But that's not really a change from years past. You know, it's the all stars would come to those races. All your biggest invaders would be at the Houston High Bank Nationals and those type of races. The Knoxville Nationals, obviously, the Kings Royal, the Million last year. You're always going to have your biggest competitors there, no matter what. So that part's not changing. But the weekly payout and some of the 20,000 win shows, and might even be some 50,000 win shows in there, that they might be competing against each other. But all in all, that's why I think what they're doing is a really good thing for try and bring more money back to the drivers and teams.
And you alluded to it a little bit ago, just about being from Pennsylvania and Hanover area. Just, I know you spent a lot of time with the Pennsylvania posse as well over the years. Just, I mean, what makes that group so difficult to compete against now, being a full-time outlaw and coming back to Pennsylvania and running against those guys?
Yeah, they're always tough. It's cool that fans and even people on the road, they always relate us to the Pennsylvania posse, and it's where I was born and raised. It's where I started racing, but I really only had a year and a half, 2 years of full time experience racing at home here in Central Pennsylvania. So that went pretty quick before we decided to go on the road and chase the Outlaws and try and compete at the highest level. But there's doesn't matter what part of the country you go to. You know, there's some that are, locals are always going to be very fast, and then there's certain parts of the country that we know it's going to be very tough. And Ohio, California, they're always going to be tough when you show up to those races. The local competition is going to be very tough, and it's hard to put one in front of the other because at any of those events, a local can win those shows. But Pennsylvania has always been very unique with the style of racetracks. They always have a paperclip style. All the racetracks are sort of long straightaways, tight corners, and I wish one day like I could get involved somehow that we could build some type of a California style racetrack in Pennsylvania. I think the fans would love it. I don't know how that's possible, but if you could get like an I-55 or a Chico or any, a Merced that you see in California, that's PA fans would love that style of racing to have that right in their backyard. But all the racetracks around here, the history that you have in Pennsylvania, they do an awesome job with the Eastern Motorsports Hall of Fame, not too far up the road from us, and kind of see where that history came from and why racing is so big in this area. And then to kind of continue that is very important to me, and kind of put my name in those history books that my kids or grandkids one day can look back at that and see that their family had a big part in continuing that history.
Now, the one aspect that I know I've found kind of unique with the World of Outlaws specifically is just, I mean, it's a national series, but it kind of has those local roots like Pennsylvania, California, all these other different places where there's local dirt tracks. Just, I mean, from your perspective, how would you describe just the atmosphere that the Outlaws present that kind of makes it different from a NASCAR or an IndyCar, another national motorsport?
As far as Pennsylvania,
I mean, just for like the World of Outlaws in general, kind of because they travel around all these local type of racetracks instead of, the big time type of, cities and that kind of thing.
yeah, I think like as far as Pennsylvania goes, and even California and Ohio, like I've said, you get that little bit of a rivalry between Pennsylvania, or I mean, the Outlaws and the local guys, and I think fans love that. You go to California, they want to see their local guy ripping the top and passing, the best of the best, and even a guy like Brad Sweet who kicked everybody's butt for a number of years. If a local guy could uh, pass him at Chico, they're going to be pretty excited. So, and the California fans and Ohio and all throughout the country, we're from Pennsylvania, but they've always treated us really well. And I think the fan base that the World of Outlaws has built throughout the country is huge, because there's no other dirt racing like World of Outlaws sprint cars. Their late models are kind of confined to a certain part of the country, that if you go elsewhere, it's not as popular. And I kind of wish it wouldn't be that way. The Outlaws did a good job with COVID year with kind of bringing us together in a few races, and I think a lot of fans enjoyed that. I don't know why it's so hard to get us to the same spot, but it seemed like fans enjoyed that. And as far as like big block modifieds, they're all northeast, but sprint cars, you can travel almost anywhere in the country and see sprint car racing, other than maybe southeast or somewhere like that. But they're going to be somewhere, and I think a lot of fans enjoy sprint car racing. And I think the World of Outlaws have done a great job at building their brand and building a fan base all throughout the country.
And now you're coming up on year 11 now with the World of Outlaws. As first part of the question, with all that time on the tour and getting accustomed to that and having success, just what do you feel has been the biggest lesson that you've learned inside the race car that still sticks with you today?
I don't know. I try to learn something every race. I feel like I continue to learn. Definitely as a young kid, that sponge-like effect that every time you're on the racetrack, you're going to learn a lot more than what, say, maybe I might learn now throughout the race. But I always try to learn something new. Every time, every racetrack, no matter where it's at. Especially when we're going to new racetracks, there's going to be, they're going to feel different, the shape of them, whatever. But yeah, I've been fortunate to be out here for a while, that I've had some experience of going to all these different types of racetracks or traveling across the country, working with different guys that now are successful on other teams, which is pretty neat to see. And, race with different groups of drivers that, I'm still fairly young. I'm 31 years old, but I've been out there with, I actually just saw a photo of my very first year in 2014. And to me, that was pretty wild, because I looked at the drivers that were in that photo, and I felt, I was a rookie, young kid, didn't know much at all, but the quality of drivers in that photo are pretty wild. It's like not many of them are still racing full time. But you had Joey Saldana, Darren Pittman, Paul McMahon, Steve Kinzer, Donnie Schatz, Sammy Swindell. I know I'm forgetting some. David Gravel was young and racing then. Um, but to race against those guys week in and week out as a, 21-year-old that really doesn't have a whole lot of experience, I thought no wonder I got my butt kicked every night, but it's also, you get thrown to the wolves and you learn a lot quicker that way. So that was kind of what my grandpa's attitude was and why we did it. And I do think it made me a much better race car driver to race against those guys.
And you kind of mentioned that, yeah, just racing against so many of the greats that are either going to be in the Hall of Fame or already there. Just, I mean, you hear the term iron sharpens iron. Just, I guess those first couple seasons, how did that sort of watching them, competing against them, sort of help you to kind of sharpen your skill set in the race car?
Yeah, it's just those guys, they were all veterans. They're older, other than, David Gravel. They've had a lot of experience in the sport at that time. Donnie was one of the younger ones at that point, and now he's considered, the older veteran, and he's not old at all. He's got a lot of years. Like I heard his banquet interview, and he's like, "Hey man, Steve Kinzer, whooped our butts until he was almost 60 years old, and Donnie's only like what mid 40s or something like that." So I think because their team's struggling a little bit, that people kind of write him off, but he's very capable of running at the same level he did before, and he's going to be very tough if they get their stuff figured out. So, but at that time, he was a younger guy, and then the others just a lot of experience and I could go to guys like Joey Saldana and Paul McMahon, and they could, um, I always had my grandfather, but those type of guys I could talk to, and they'd give me pointers or just mentor you a little bit and try and help you out. They're great people and great guys, and part of great families. So um, that part was neat for me. Like I said, because there was only maybe David Gravel who was close to Jake and I's age, but to race against those guys every night definitely made you a lot better, a lot quicker.
And yeah, just obviously going on looking at the schedule, Knoxville always seems to, be the asterisk beside it, just because it's Knoxville Nationals. Just I just no competing in that event for so many times for so many years and coming so close to winning it. Just how would you describe the atmosphere that the Knoxville Nationals presents that kind of makes it its own kind of event that separates itself from the rest?
Yeah, now it's you might there's not a prestigious event anywhere even close to the Knoxville Nationals, and you feel that when you're there for the week of, the build up from the Capitani on to Oskaloosa, the Wednesday and Thursday qualifying nights up to Saturday, and it just feels like the more fans pile in throughout the week, the atmosphere builds, and knowing that big Knoxville Nationals trophy is on the line on Saturday, even if there's some bigger paying races now. There's not a more prestigious event, not even anywhere close to what the Knoxville Nationals is. So it would mean a lot to me in my career, obviously, to be able to win that race. I've been very close. We've been very fast there. I thought we had a great shot at it this year. I feel like a lot of people forget that we were right there to have a, maybe take it away from Kyle. Obviously Kyle's a very, very good race car driver, and that would have been very tough to do. But we were closing on him when we broke with only about 10 laps to go this year. So we finished second in the past. We finished on the podium now, I think, three times, and we're on the podium, maybe catching Kyle, maybe having a chance to throw something at him there the last 10 laps and when we broke this year. So hopefully, it happens in my career. I think we're very capable of doing so, obviously, with the record that we've had so far in our resume. But yeah, it'd be huge to me to be able to win that race, and not just one time. It's talking to David Gravel not long ago. He was fortunate enough to win that race the year we ran second, and obviously for him, it's like you win it one time, you want to win it again, and it's like he said, there's only a few names in history. There's been a few, like my grandfather who has won the Knoxville Nationals, and he's kind of defined. A lot of people, remember him as winning that race. But if you can win it two times, that puts you at a level that only a few are at. So, hopefully we can win it one time. I'd like to win it more than that. And, like I said, I'm only 31 years old, so very fortunate to win a very big race last year, but I don't want to be defined by that either. I want to, keep my name or put my name at the top of the list with some of the best in the sport and try and win as many of these big races as I can.
I mean, you got at least 30 more years of competing. Yeah, final two questions.
So at least
Yeah. Yeah, we will put a number on that. Yeah, final two questions. Is, you mentioned it, Eldora Million. So it was a huge event for you guys to be able to, check that off the lists and, cash a check like that. I mean, that's pretty crazy. Just, as you kind of head into this year, how can a race like that kind of define not only that year that you're in at that point, but heading into the next year, just financially and everything else with the with sprint car racing being such a tight budget type of thing that it is.
Yeah, it's huge. Like I kind of said earlier, we've kind of built this team up. My grandfather had this dream when we first started racing that, to build it up so much every year that we could start to race at the highest level and compete for championships and, go after winning all these big races. And it's hurt us in times as far as DNFs and stuff like that to kind of be in a bad spot and not be able to get the parts and stuff that we needed, even though we know it could cause us trouble. And, winning that race last July, we basically right away started getting ready for 2024 and are in a much better position than what we've ever been to start this year as far as our engines, our cars, spare parts. We have Lonnie Judy and Brendan Collum on the 1S car that was our first year working together last year. I thought we all worked very well, but it took about half the season to where we felt like we could use everybody to their highest potential and get the most out of our team. So I'm looking forward to that this year, and just kind of like I said, having what we need. And I look forward to it's my goal to win a World of Outlaws championship. That's why we're going out, on our 11th year running the World of Outlaws. It's gonna be tough. The 2-car David Gravel, Carson Macedo, Gio is fast. I'm sure Sheldon's gonna be on it this year, but I believe in my team. I believe what they're doing, and I hope and think that we can be a lot more consistent, kind of knock out some of them DNFs and go to some of the racetracks that we struggled at and get some consistent finishes and hopefully make the nights that are bad nights be a 7th or 8th place finish, because that's what you see guys like Donnie and Brad. When they win championships, their bad nights are 7th or 8th place finish. So that's what we need to do to be more consistent.
Well, Logan, I appreciate for taking the time. Yeah, thanks for going through the whole technical issue stuff. But yeah, hopefully it's a great season, and we'll talk to you guys here soon.
All right, thanks, bud. Appreciate
Yep.
it. Thanks for having me. I'll try and figure that out for next time.
No worries. Hey, you have a good day.
You too, bud.
Thanks for tuning in to episode 52 with special guests Logan Schuchart. As someone who grew up in Pennsylvania and been to a good bit of races at Williams Grove Speedway, it's just amazing to me how Logan has been able to go from a Pennsylvania posse member to being a full-time driver on the World of Outlaws tour. And that schedule sure isn't for the faint of heart, and it's just a true testament to the work just going on at Shark Racing there in Hanover, Pennsylvania to churn out great race cars. I mean, as it stands right now, Logan is one win away from being tied for 18th on the World of Outlaws all-time win list. That's pretty darn impressive for only being 31 years old. Well, we appreciate you guys for tuning in to today's show. If you haven't already, be sure to go check out our latest interviews, which includes the likes of Mark Martin, Donnie Schatz, and Tony Schumacher. Also, before you leave, drop a comment below and press that like button over there, or if it's over here, I don't know. You can follow this podcast on X and Instagram at Behind Catch. Thanks again for watching. Have a great day, everyone, and I'll catch you guys later.